There it goes. Jessica, we ready? Yeah, we're waiting for one. I'll get started and just read the beginner. Okay. Okay, December 14th. Good evening, and welcome to the December 14th, 2023 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Hearings before this commission are quasi-judicial in nature. This is a design review process to determine whether a proposed project is congruous with the special character of the historic district or landmark in which it is located. Decisions of the commission are based on the record of these proceedings, the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks, and the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Evidence submitted to the commission for review will become part of the record. Appeal of a commission decision must be submitted to the Wilmington Board of Adjustment within 30 days of the date of the commission's action, and further appeal must be submitted to Superior Court. Evidence pertaining to an agenda item must be presented during the evidentiary portion of that item. Individuals who wish to address the commission will be sworn in as witnesses to present material and substantial evidence. The chair will recognize each witness who wishes to address the commission during the evidentiary portion. In order to ensure that witness evidence is properly recorded, each individual should come to the podium and clearly state their name and address before addressing the commission. As a brief reminder, members of the commission are appointed by and serve at the pleasure of City Council. Our charge is with respect to the protection and preservation of properties located within the city's designated historic districts. The commission is held to the requirements of the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks, as well as the applicable North Carolina state law. We are to determine whether exterior changes to a building are congruous with the special character of the city's historic districts. It is important that the commission deliberate the merits of each request in a manner that provides a record for the basis of our decisions. Please remember our deliberation should be centered on how a project meets the Wilmington Design Standards and whether the changes are congruous. Commissioners, if you have received or been made aware of any information outside this evidentiary hearing related to any agenda item before the commission, please recuse yourself from that agenda item. Before the meeting begins, please ensure that all cell phones are in silent mode or turned off. I will begin with the introduction of city staff, and we have Tracy Manning is standing in for Amy Bradshaw, Jessica Baldwin, Linda Painter, and Melissa Huffman. And then at this point, I am Kathleen Egan, the commission chair, and my fellow commissioners will now introduce themselves.
Ross Tomaselli. Stephen Sulkey.
Ashley Wilson.
Christopher Yermal.
Thank you. We will now swear in those present who wish to present evidence related to an agenda item.
Staff, applicants, and members of the public who wish to speak, kindly stand. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
Thank you. We've received drafts of the minutes from last month's meeting, and are there any suggested edits or corrections to the draft? Okay, then could I have a motion to accept them?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. We will now move to the evidentiary portion of the meeting, and we will begin with new business. And the first agenda item, a staff report on 109 South 7th.
The subject property is located on the east side of South 7th Street between Dock and Orange Streets and is a contributing resource in Historic District residential. All facades and the site are subject to design review in this district. The Penny House, built circa 1888, is a two-story, three-bay wide side passage Italianate-style dwelling. The low-pitched hip roof has an ornate bracketed cornice and wide frieze band with arched vents. The 2/2 sash windows feature decorative peaked hoods and molded trim. The front facade is adorned with a two-story, full-width front porch supported by posts with ornamental brackets on the upper story and hand-sawn corbels. Both stories' balustrades feature turned balusters. The main entry is a double-leaf door with a segmental arch and coordinating transom. Along the southern side, a three-sided bay projects from the upper story and is supported by an ornate bracket. The applicant proposes to replace the existing standing seam and metal roof with a Gulf Coast 5V 12-inch crimp panels. No gutters, downspouts, or new vents are proposed. Staff would like to enter this presentation and report in tonight's proceedings at this time.
Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you. We will now allow the applicant the opportunity to provide additional evidence or answer questions. They're not here? Okay, we'll open the evidentiary portion to members of the public. Okay, then we will close the evidentiary portion and move to commissioner deliberation.
I'm sorry, I missed something. Is the applicant not here to provide any other, the roof looks like it's in really good condition. I don't understand why they don't want to save some money and coat this instead of replacing it.
I haven't spoken to the applicant. They submitted through an agent, and this is literally all the information that was given to us.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, you know me, I want evidence that the roof is falling off the house, and yeah, from the pictures I saw, and you can see some of it from the street, and it looks as good as my roof, and there's 4 other houses right in that line, similar roofs, probably about the same age. I mean, I just don't see allowing that roof to come off the house with no evidence or anything. And then, of course, putting a 5V roof instead of a standing seam is a whole nother matter. But
Right.
Exactly.
yeah, but I think at the get-go here, to say, oh, you ripped that roof off? No.
Great.
Jessica or Megan, have we had any contact from the agent or the applicants about why they aren't here today?
No, ma'am.
This may be a situation where we want to continue the matter until January and give them the opportunity to be here. This is the first time on.
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. And I mean, we don't have enough information, photographs, anything to show a reason why
Right.
this roof should come off.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've had people before have to bring us photographs, statements of contractors, buckets in their attic with the water is pouring in, et cetera, and
Yeah.
we have none of this here.
Exactly, and if you continue the case, it gives them the opportunity to be here. If we went ahead and had a vote on it today, then they would have difficulty reapplying. So my recommendation would be to continue it at least one time.
I have a motion to continue
I
then?
move that we continue this item, the first item, 109 South 7th Street, until the meeting in January.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, then we will go to agenda item number 2, 508 Ann Street.
The subject property is located on the south side of Ann Street, between South 5th Avenue and South 6th Street. The subject property is a vacant lot located in Historic District Residential, and revisions to all facades of a building and the site are subject to design review in this district. The subject lot is a 2,343 square foot vacant lot. Staff research shows that this lot, as well as the 2 vacant lots to the east, were all at one time combined and featured identical houses like the one shown here from archived photos of 512 Ann Street. The dwelling on 508 Ann Street lot was demolished between 1962 and 1982, and a shed on the lot was demolished in 2022. In 2021, staff approved the installation of a 6-foot-tall wood fence along the western property line, 1 foot inside the property line. The applicant proposes to construct a new 2-story dwelling. The subject dwelling, including the porch, will be 22 feet wide at the front, 25 feet and 4 inches wide at the rear, and 47 feet deep. The proposed dwelling will have a footprint of approximately 1,034 square feet, which is 44% of the lot. The proposed dwelling setbacks are 6 feet from the front porch and 13 feet from the dwelling's front facade, 3 feet and 6 inches from the west side elevation, 6 feet and 8 inches to 10 feet from the east side elevation, and the 9 feet from the rear exterior stairs and 13 feet from the rear of the dwelling. The proposed dwelling will feature a foundation no taller than 36 inches in height that will be CMU with a parge coat and will be clad in smooth hardy board plank with a 6-inch reveal. The proposed exterior trim, fascias, and soffits will be hardy board as well. All windows, unless noted otherwise, will be JELD-WIN V2500 vinyl single-hung 1/1 sash, double pane glazed, 2 feet and 8 inches wide by 5 feet tall. And all doors, unless otherwise noted, will be Therma-Tru 3/4 light paneled fiberglass with a 12-inch transom. The proposed roof will have a 12/7 slope and be clad in CertainTeed landmark architectural asphalt shingles in the color cobblestone. All steps on the front and rear facades will be General Shale Phoenix brick. Here you can see the front facade and west side facade. The front elevation and west elevation. The proposed front elevation features a 2-story hipped roof porch, which is supported by 4 8-inch by 8-inch square wood columns while both balustrades will have simple square balusters and top and bottom rails. The proposed 1st-story porch will be a concrete with a soldier brick course to match the stairs. The proposed 2nd-story porch floor will be concrete with a GAF Hydrostop acrylic coating in light gray. Both proposed porch ceilings will be clad in 1-inch wide tongue and groove cypress. The proposed 1st-story west side will have 3 windows, with the southernmost windows to be paired JELD-WIN V2500 vinyl fixed double pane 2 feet and 8 inches by 2 feet and 8 inches. Here you can see the rear and east elevations. The proposed rear south elevation features a 1-story porch stoop made of treated pine with a balustrade to match the front facades. The rear entry door will be Therma-Tru half-light with lower squared panels, fiberglass door, and the 1st-story facade will have JELD-WIN V2500 vinyl single-hung 1/1 sash windows measuring 2 feet and 8 inches by 3 feet and 6 inches. The proposed east elevation will have 5 windows total, with the 1st-story southernmost window being a JELD-WIN V2500 vinyl fixed 2 feet 8 inches by 2 feet 8 inches window, and the northernmost window a JELD-WIN V2500 vinyl single-hung 1/1 sash measuring 2 feet and 8 inches wide by 3 feet and 6 inches high. The applicant plans to remove 2 trees and 1 camellia bush from the property for development. The applicant also requests to construct a concrete runner driveway approximately 40 feet and 4 inches long to the east side of the proposed dwelling. A new driveway curb cut will be required as part of this change. The applicant also proposes to install a 6-foot-tall stockade-style wood fence located along the east side following the property line, with gates on either side of the dwelling. Wood fences are currently installed along the rear and west side property lines. The applicant did not provide a complete landscaping plan at this time for the staff's report.
Any questions for staff?
Oh, I'm not done.
Oh, sorry, Megan.
I know it's long. Ann Street has 1- and 2-story houses with 1-story half-width and full-width porches, except for the corner of South Fifth Avenue, which has a 2-story front porch. Neighboring setbacks are varied. Most along the southern side of Ann Street are between 0 and 5 feet. Along the northern side of Ann Street, the setbacks range from 7 feet and 5 inches to 12 feet and 11 inches. The Historic District Residential has some of the finest residential structures in Wilmington, and here on the screen you can see examples of new construction that's been approved in the Historic District Residential. Staff would like to enter the presentation and report in the record of tonight's proceedings at this time.
Thank you. Questions?
I'm sorry, Megan, in the original introduction, there was a discrepancy between something in the application where I was seeing, it's rather immaterial, I just want to make sure it was connected, but it was a 30-inch height foundation wall, and then you mentioned a 36-inch height foundation wall.
I can clarify that. Originally, we had 36, but they submitted to us for 36, and we had a typo that said 30 in the staff report. So it's 36.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will now give the applicant opportunity to provide additional information or answer questions.
Good evening. I'm
Sir.
Darren
Sir,
Ivy.
were you sworn in? I didn't see you stand. Okay.
I signed in. Do I need to do something else?
Okay.
I did not.
Okay, yeah, you should be sworn in. I think some people have come in since then, Tracy, so if everybody who hasn't been sworn in that wants to speak will stand up, then that would be great.
Yeah.
She's gonna do it.
Staff,
Anybody else?
applicants, and
fine.
members of the public who wish to speak, kindly stand. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Just give us your name and address so we can put it in the minutes.
My name is Darren Ivy, and I live at 203 Borden Avenue.
Thank you. Questions?
Is there anything to add or clarify?
No, I'm here to answer any questions you might have. I felt like the case report was pretty thorough and covered all the details. I tried to think of everything you might want to see and include that in the application, so I have nothing additional.
Okay, thank you. It's a nice-looking plan.
Okay,
That was
thank
easy.
you.
Okay, then we'll now open the evidentiary portion to members of the public.
Good evening, Commissioners. Travis Gilbert, Historic Wilmington Foundation, 211 Orange Street. Select members of our Preservation Action Committee recently convened to discuss some of our thoughts about new construction and infill within the Historic District Residential. I think it's my duty tonight to summarize some of that conversation. Not all of that is feedback specific to this site, but I do think it is applicable and relevant to your decision tonight. There was a robust conversation about the introduction of these, what I would consider pattern book houses in the district. This design, this aesthetic is very similar to other infill that you have been presented with over the course of the past few years. There was some thought about the appropriateness of having this repetition, this pattern throughout the Historic District Residential, but great minds kind of prevailed and recognized that pattern book houses had a long storied past in our historic district residential. It was staff noted that on this site there were 3 nearly identical houses built most likely in the late 19th or early 20th century. We believe they appear in the 1910 or 1915 Sanborn maps. Additionally, at 223 South 5th Avenue within eyesight of this property, and then at 232 South 6th Street, there's a 1914, one of the many wash shower houses in the Historic District residential that follow this same pattern. So after we unpacked some of the sources and the historical data that was available to this select subcommittee for this site, some of our concerns about this repetition of aesthetic began to weather away. But there were some patterns within this kind of pattern book house that keeps presenting itself to the Historic Preservation Committee that still lingered after the conversation. First is the material of the porch floor being concrete. We believe this is in opposition to standard 3.6.1 and standard 4.2.5, and our preference in abiding by those standards is to revert to a tongue and groove wood porch as opposed to a concrete porch, very similar to the material that is being used in the porch ceilings in this specific site. We believe that that better abides by the standards. We understand the maintenance of wood rot. Concrete's a much easier fix, but we do believe that tongue groove wood porches are more appropriate. Additionally, there were some concerns about the continued introduction of driveways in the Historic District residential. Specifically 3 points. Standard 2.4.4 discusses, encourages less pervious surfaces. These concrete riders in the Historic District keep presenting themselves. We do believe that the argument is that it is introducing less runoff and so forth. However, in one of the staff pictures, I think just previous to this, you see, especially when a landscape plan is not submitted before the Historic Preservation Commission, oftentimes the best qualities of those concrete runners fade away when you're not introducing vegetation within those concrete runners. Additionally, standard 2.4.6 discusses trying to keep these driveways, when introduced to the Historic District residential, less visible from the public right away. You will notice that this site, in addition to sites in the past very similar, this is extremely visible from the public right away. Standard 2.4.6 encourages the use of screens and fences and so forth to at least minimize the visibility of driveways from the public right away. Unfortunately, this site does not introduce any of those type of mitigations. Lastly, standard 2.4.1 discusses trying to continue with the development patterns of this specific neighborhood. This block has little to no driveways. There are a few within this block as we consider from the plan of Wilmington, but this 500 block stretch of Ann Street does not have any other driveways that we are aware of. There are some driveways that are kind of being forced to the issue, but those are green spaces that are being utilized as parking. We want to ensure that this development pattern does not begin overwhelming the Historic District residential. As we're preparing for this year's house tour, one notes at Westbrook Ardmore, the difference between that historic district and Carolina Place is their driveways, nearly in every site, and that's what makes that historic district unique when compared to its sister Carolina Place just along Wrightsville Avenue. We want to encourage new construction and infill. This is a wonderful site. This commission knows our Historic Wilmington Foundation's commitment to 504 Ann Street, right next door. And eventually that'll have a historic preservation easement. So we are very excited about this infill and a block that is near and dear to our hearts. But we would like the commission to consider the standards that I presented tonight for the case in front of you, very narrowly, but also to keep in the back of your mind as these pattern book houses continue to present themselves for infill opportunities across the Historic District Residential in the months and years to come. Thank you.
There are no further comments from members of the public. We will close the evidentiary portion and move to commissioner deliberation. But I do have one question that maybe the applicant can help with. It looks from the drawings that there was already a driveway pad there. Is that, did I look at that wrong, or is that a different property? It looks like there was a driveway entryway there.
There appears to be a very small driveway cut on the eastern side where I'm proposing the driveway to be. I don't know if that was a driveway previously. Years ago, there was some sort of easement through there that provided access to 305 South Fifth Avenue. I don't know if it was pedestrian. It's very small, though.
Oh, I
It's,
see.
so I don't really know what it was used for in the past.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Actually, I want to put, if I'm not mistaken, you are proposing at least the porch ceiling to be cypress, tongue and groove, wood,
Yes.
right? Any other thoughts on other items that were, discussed, or
Well,
with the porch floor, the porch ceiling, the vegetation, the concrete runners, screen? I'm not sure, the screening of the driveway, I'm not sure if Travis can kind of explain that for us a little bit more. I don't know if it's screening like with a gate that closes or something to that effect. But anyway, just any of the other items to, under consideration for design with this?
yeah, starting with the porch comment, he's right. The reason we do concrete porches is because they are lower maintenance and they will last virtually forever if you build them correctly and get good compaction beneath the concrete. That's the main reason I was doing it at this location. The other alternative, unfortunately, is to do the tongue and groove wood, which being on the north side of the house, it's probably going to have a lot of problems with it. They just seem to not last very long.
New construction, it doesn't necessarily have to be wood, as long as it was tongue and groove. Something, I think, to give that effect, I imagine would be an option.
Yeah, we've done it either way in the past, but that's the main reason I proposed it that way is because I'd seen it approved on other projects. And I've done it myself on maybe 20% of the houses I've built have had concrete porches with a brick row-lock. And I just think it's a very, very low-maintenance way to go. The future homeowner will only have to wash it off periodically and should never have any issues with it. And I think the brick row-lock matches the brick steps. That's kind of another thing I like to see. And then as far as the parking goes, there seems to be some on-street parking issues down there. You have St. Mary's across the street, and I drove by there on a Sunday morning, and it was pretty bad. The street was filled up with cars, and I just think it's important to try to provide one or two off-street parking spaces, if at all possible. Unfortunately, that's the culture and society we live in. Most people have one or two cars, and if you're asking someone to spend a lot of money on a house and not have a driveway or off-street parking, I think it's going to decrease the value. And as far as screening goes, these lots are so small that it would be tough to do any of that without doing a gate, as you mentioned. That's about the only way I could imagine screening the driveway. I'd be happy to put whatever material is desired between the runners. I don't know if you would want like a wash 57 stone or grass or...
What would it be otherwise? Like what, if you were going forward with this and putting these runners in, what would
one
be-
or the other, typically. Yeah, so either a washed number 57 granite stone, which is kind of the bluish gray, the nicer stone, or when you do the landscaping, you could put sod there between it. I suppose there are other options, but those are the two that come to mind. The downside of sod, speaking from experience, I've seen it where a hot car will pull in atop it and it kills the grass over time, just the heat of the vehicle. But most of it would look okay, but up by the house it would probably die and not look so great.
I'm sorry, in the presentation, was there a photograph of the house that used to be there? I see that it was noted to be, it was demolished sometime between 1964 and 1982. Was this the home that was there before?
So we believe, based on research, that the lot at 508 was all part of a larger lot that extended all the way to the corner of 6th Street. And on that lot were 4 identical properties at one time. And my belief, based on the Sanborns and some things of that, and photo documentation we have of 512 that you see here and 514, 512 and 514 are exactly alike, and the way they're drawn on the Sanborns, they're exactly alike. So my belief is that they were most likely all 5 identical houses like the one you see here.
Any other questions for applicant? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any comments from commissioners? Thoughts?
I feel like I appreciate Travis's comments on this because there is a lot of infill with a certain pattern, and the infill is great. That's wonderful. And I thought it would be nice to see that photograph of the house that was there. I mean, originally, or maybe one that was very much like it. I note that there are, 2/2 windows. A lot of houses are going in are just a 1/1, and that's the only thing I think that kind of jumps out that I've been thinking about more and more is just having something other than a 1/1. I'd just like to hear what other folks think about any other comments that were made about it, but it's something I think to consider here going forward, some of these ideas about maintaining that rhythm, on these new construction projects. Needing the new construction projects, wanting them to get in there, but just kind of supporting the rhythm of the neighborhoods that are already there.
Chris, is there a big difference in the cost of a window that's a 2/2 to a 1/1? I mean, does it matter a lot, or is it?
Do you know what the cost might be, the difference between a 2/2 and a 1/1? Like what that looks like for a SDL 2/2? Is it
Yeah, I don't know offhand.
like per window?
If you're talking about the same model number, but just adding SDL 2/2, that would be doable. But I hope we're not talking about jumping to a whole different line of windows, because
No.
that could get very expensive. But
No.
yeah, to add SDL 2/2 to that window, I don't imagine it would be more than, probably less than 50%. It probably would be a 50% increase. But I haven't done that in a long time, so I'm not up on the prices, on the post-COVID prices.
far as a driveway, yeah, there is a problem with parking downtown. And I mean, sometimes you just have to grin and bear it, because if we keep building houses without any driveways, I don't know where people are going to park. My wife and I once looked at a house in one of the streets near us, and we kind of crossed the house off because it had no parking, and it was just a nightmare to park on that street. I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah, where it can fit, it adds a lot of value. I mean, where it can fit in there, if you can design around it, and this floor plan designed around that option, you can see how it notches out to get wider to 25, almost 25 and a half feet. If the property can support it, seems like a nice pursuit for livability and easing that burden on the street.
It would be nice to see some architectural variations between the houses, like a 2/2 or something that didn't look quite so cookie cutter. But it's not part of the standards that we can require.
I think that the plans show a quality house, and I think that the contractor has a very good reputation within Ardmore, Carolina Place. And that is, that's a plus, especially when we've seen many flippers come in and do and we don't have any control. I mean, it's well done, and I understand what Travis means by are they all going to come in and look just like everyone? But I think you're right. I think he's done well with the space he has.
Travis also said historically, and I know there's areas when I walk around the historic district, I mean, many of these houses from whenever, 1890, are very similar. I mean, it's not like they're all totally unique.
Right.
Back in the day, they used to do that too, so it's kind of hard to say now.
Yeah, in the Sears catalog.
Yeah.
First thing I thought of was,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay. Well, would someone like to make a motion then? I think we're okay with this.
so, I'll move to accept.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
That includes all of the-
Sorry,
Yeah,
should read
thank-
the motion, that would help, wouldn't it?
That's what I was
Sorry, I got so
waiting
involved
for.
with everything here. Okay.
There's a motion in your packets.
Here somewhere, so I'm sorry. Oh, this is,
Second one, 508, Ian?
yeah, I'm sorry, I gotta find it here. Oh,
Here.
okay, thank you. Okay. I move to approve with conditions the construction of a new infill residential construction. Details as shown on the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statements contained in the application and the supplemental materials. The statements made in this meeting are part of this request unless otherwise noted. The motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff reports, including the findings of facts. The following conditions shall be applied to ensure compliance with design standards, those set forth in the staff report 1 through 18. The proposed request with conditions does comply with the Wilmington Design Standards for historic districts and landmarks, is compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the historic building and the historic district in which it is located, and is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the historic district residential as a whole. Applicable design standards, all of them. I don't think we have to read all those.
We had a second. And all in favor?
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Okay.
Okay, then we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is 710 Grace Street.
All right. The subject property is located on the south side of Gray Street between McCray and North 7th Streets. It is a non-contributing resource to the Historic District, and revisions to all facades of the building and site are subject to design review within the district. The Cromwell House, built circa 1904, is an L-shaped, 4-bay wide front gable cottage with a pyramidal roof. Archives descriptions noted once had a central entry door with a transom front porch and 2/2 sash windows. Today, the front porch has been infilled and the front facade features a central entry. The applicant proposes to replace the decorative shutters with identical shutters. The applicant also proposes to remove the cladding from all facades and install new wood siding on the front facade and a portion of the western facade. The new wood siding will match the dimensions and design of the existing siding. The applicant also proposes to install new hardy board siding on the rear and side facades of the main dwelling. The new hardy board siding will match the dimensions of the existing. Finally, the applicant proposes to remove shingles from the front facade gable and install new cedar wood stagger butt shingles on the front facade gable end. The new shingles will not be painted or stained. The applicant also requests to replace the front entry door and frame with a great view doors, knotty alder, unfinished pre-hung single front door with a divided light and lower panel. The applicant also requests to repaint the house and front door in the colors shown here. Staff notes that the HPC meeting held on December 9th, 2021, the contractor and former owner of the home noted that the current shingles on the gable and the wood siding were revealed when vinyl siding was removed from the house. Staff notes that the existing shutters were approved by a bypass application in 2022, and the house is considered non-contributing to the historic district due to the lack of original integrity, though at the time of designation it was covered in vinyl siding. Staff would like to enter tonight's presentation and report in its entirety to proceedings. Questions? Okay.
Jessica. Okay, we will now give the applicant the opportunity to provide additional information or answer questions.
I think that was pretty self-explanatory. The reason I'd like to remove the wood and add the hardy board where it's not visible from the street is because I need to replace the windows, which is why I was here last fall. Haven't done that yet for multiple reasons, but in order to replace the windows because of the water intrusion and other issues with the home, my contractor requires the home to be sheathed or what is it called? Wrapped to ensure that everything is secure before replacing the windows.
And I apologize, I forgot to ask you to give us your name and address so we can put it in the minutes.
Sorry. Karina Schultz, 710 Grace Street.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
The siding that's on the entire house now is wood, correct?
It is, and a lot of it is actually rotting, and I think in the packet you can see some of where it's nearly falling off.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, maybe this is for staff. Can you remind me about the window application that was submitted and I guess approved fairly recently?
No, so originally the applicant came in a while back wanting to replace the existing wood windows that had been approved as an after-the-fact change, but had not been signed off on at the final inspected, so she came in asking for vinyl windows, and that was denied. But the after-the-fact current windows were approved after the fact, and he had put in vinyl. And he came here, and we asked him to put in wood, so he came back and put in wood. So then when she came to ask to put in new vinyl, that was denied. Okay. So the current windows that are installed were approved. They just weren't finalized, inspected.
They're improperly installed.
I'm sorry, what was that?
They're improperly installed. and causing issues within my home.
So they're all going to come out and you're going to replace them with,
The original, per the meeting last year, the original 2/2 wood windows. And I have the Geldwin, which has been selected by my contractor. The windows that were installed are 4/4, actually, and weren't even the ones that were requested by you.
This application has nothing to do with windows. I want to be very clear
No,
about
Yes.
that.
I got it. I'm
Yes.
just trying to figure out.
Yeah.
where
Yeah,
in
I
the
just don't want us to
process.
get caught up, mixed up.
Yep.
And the contractor is saying that they can't install the new windows without ripping off all the siding, resheathing it, racking it, resheathing it, and putting a water-resistant barrier, I presume, and then recladding it in some siding, and you want that siding to be wood on the front, but hardy on the sides and the rear.
Correct. They said they would not, is what they said, but yes.
I'm sorry, they said they would not, they wouldn't do the work if they couldn't do all of this additional.
No, just to ensure that the issues that I'm having currently in my home, due to the cause of the original wood windows, would not resurface. And it's also rotting, the wood.
And you're not proposing anything, so the front door, so that's a wood front door, and you're proposing replacing it with a new wood front door, correct?
The door's rotting.
It is. And
Yes.
what's going to keep it from rotting in the future, though?
So in a near future, HPC, I'll be here again to propose a covering over the entranceway. I just don't have that drawing yet to provide you.
Personally, I feel like you should put the money into putting that little roof over your door, because it's going to rot again.
That's what I just,
And not replace all of your siding. Look, the siding isn't the problem. I think maintenance over time is the issue. Just pay attention to it, replace the rotted wood in the critical areas with new dried treated wood, paint it, keep up with the painting, but quickly get something in front of the commission, save the money on that, put that covering over the door, because this new door is going to rot.
I'm not going to replace the door until I have the cover over it.
Okay.
I'm just have this ready and just trying to get my approvals lined up.
There's not much in here from the contractor about why he wants to do this. I've never heard of someone wanting to wrap a house in order to install
And
windows.
I'm sorry, did you say wrap or rack?
Wrap.
Okay,
Wrap.
gotcha. Okay. Okay, I understand that part a little bit better now. But anyway, still, to your point, I mean, yeah, it's,
Strange.
It looks like you've been through a lot.
I have,
And
and
a hard
my house has
time.
had a lot of water intrusion. I have mold in my home, so we're just wanting my house to be very secure. There's no sheathing or wrap around my windows currently, so just being very precautious about any work that's done on my home.
as far as you know right now, the house has siding, and then wood studs, and maybe insulation, and then your whatever interior finish, right? There's no felt, there's no boards behind the siding, there's nothing really between the wood siding and, basically nothing between the wood siding and your interior finish, plaster or drywall, whatever it is, right? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I'm lucky. I don't even know if there's, I don't even know if there's insulation. We'll find out.
Personally, I think you ought to do some more research and have some more opinions before you take all of the siding off of the house.
I appreciate that, but based on the facts and, just the siding alone is what I'm trying to get approved. The siding, the colors, the cedar shakes. I mean, me getting advice is on me. The approval for what I'm trying to do on my home is what I'm here for.
So the cedar shakes that are on that navy blue part, they're also rotten?
Well, they're rotten, but in order to completely rot my home, they would have to come off.
Okay. Any other questions for applicant?
I mean, would you be amenable to the idea of taking the siding off, getting new sheathing, wrapping the house, and just reinstalling wood siding?
Well, like I said, a bunch of the siding is actually rotting, and I think if you look in the packet, you'll see a few of those images. You can walk by my house and literally see a piece falling off below on the top of my bushes. So the siding, either way, will likely have to be replaced.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Now we'll open the evidentiary portion to members of the public.
Good evening once again, Travis Gilbert, Historic Wilmington Foundation. Historic Wilmington Foundation, we're excited about the new standards and exploring the introduction of synthetic materials into the historic districts, overlays and landmarks when appropriate. And we appreciated Jessica's availability to come speak to our Preservation Action Committee. We've been looking at the new preservation brief on synthetic materials. We're very excited where staff is going with this for addressing all kinds of issues, sustainability, affordability, etc. This is not it. And I want to make very clear, if this is approved tonight, the Historic Wilmington Foundation will need to reconsider our openness to new standards with synthetic materials. We asked staff to look at the burden of proof that would be required when discussing the availability of synthetic materials. What is that burden of proof? Is it a time frame? Is it a cost measure? And we're very appreciative of responsive staff and where that conversation is going. This seems to not have any regard to that burden of proof. Is wood siding not available? Is there a long wait? What is precluding standard 1.1.6 from being applicable here? Repair rather than replace. This goes a little too far, and we sincerely believe is in opposition to the Secretary of Interior standards. Additionally, we have severe concerns about the gable and that cedar shake as well. It is an unusual pattern, and we appreciated the staff report being very specific that it would be replaced like for like. We have concerns about the availability and sourcing of that particular pattern in that gable. And all this should be said that this is a non-contributing resource that is non-contributing due to the deterioration of its integrity. And this presents an opportunity to reclaim that contributing status if the preservation of the property is completed following y'all standards and the Secretary of Interior standards. And based on these facts and more, we believe that this would be a step in the opposite direction in reclaiming that contributing status. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? No, then we'll close the evidentiary portion and go to Commissioner deliberation.
I don't see any evidence of stripping this. I don't see any evidence of stripping the everything. There's just not, I don't see it there.
Ashley, make sure you speak in that mic, please.
I don't see any evidence of needing to, in these documents, to strip and put on hardy siding. We did make a concession for the, previously, for the person that renovated to put in wood windows, and it didn't work out, unfortunately, for whatever reason. Not sure who the inspector was, but it's not our responsibility to, have a property inspected before a purchase and to see what needs to be done in the historic district, per se. And I'm not seeing this happening as a remedy.
I agree. I can't approve it. Any other comments?
As a building contractor myself, I can't count how many times I've seen this level of rot on a house and said, well, let's just repair the rot and with new material, with wood, and keep going. And the windows, as long as they're installed properly without having a sheathed or wrapped house, it's really not required. It isn't required. You can do it without doing that. So I mean, I feel like it's the path is not the best path for the house in a lot of ways. I think there's a lot of other ways to go about this, and I would be repairing the wood, making sure the windows are installed properly, getting something built over the front door, and just keep going. But this doesn't seem to really warrant passage, in my opinion, as it is.
In that case, could I have someone making the motion then? I think we're agreed that we won't approve it.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
So in the proposal, it was to keep the original or very light wood in the front and the hardy board on the sides. Okay, it wasn't to do the whole home in hardy board.
Right.
Secondly, I need approval to reside it. So if you won't do hardy board, I need approval to at least do it all wood, so that I can move forward. If you, okay, if that's okay. So if you could approve that, which I would hope you can do that, I would appreciate it.
Do you know what the thickness of that material is, the existing wood right now? Is it 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch? I can't really tell from the photographs.
The thickness
I know
is-
it's 5 inches this way. I know it's 5 inches this way. I'm not sure about the thickness. I would say it's thin-ish, but it's definitely between 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch, probably 1/2.
So I'm curious, if you replace the wood, let's just say remove all of the siding, all 4 sides, and then what's next? What do they do next in the field to the home? They put a felt or some other material over it, or they're putting plywood on it and then putting that material?
They're going to have to put the plywood, and then they're going to have to put the material on it, and then they'll reside the house.
Every trim feature is going to change then. All the soffit, the frieze board, if there's frieze board, the corner, everything is going to change and get out of dimension with what's there now. By adding changing all the materials, the thickness of the materials is going to put out of whack every other, like the whole. It's not just your siding that's coming off; it's everything. Soffit, frieze, corners, window casing, of course. I mean, that's what you're proposing.
Right, but the intent is for the house to look like my house, like if you notice the window trim is like out of whack, it was so nice and narrow. And then if you look at it now, I mean, if you go back to these previous pictures, I mean, it was narrow. I mean, this isn't the house I bought, but you can see the difference. So I'm trying to get my house looking like a nice, normal house. And then for the shakes, I'm open to different cedar shakes. If the shape is, you tell me, I thought that was close to what's up there, I'm open to other shapes if they're available.
If those current shakes aren't completely rotten and falling off, it would be better if you could leave them there. I mean, that little part of the house, I can't imagine that that would be something that would have to be completely torn off and redone.
I haven't been on a ladder and up there. They look all caked on and stuff. I can come back for bypass for that, but
So when you bought the house and you had had it inspected, and all of this came up, did you question any of this?
so if I may, when the December 9th, 2022 meeting, it was known here at the meeting that the windows would not be in until after the house was purchased. So the windows were actually installed after I purchased the home.
Okay, and so, but you also had an inspection of the siding and everything else before you purchased the home.
Yes.
And so,
It was just painted. It was just painted. So it was caulked and painted. So now the paint is cracking. We've had a lot of rain, and the caulking is spreading out. That's the only answer I can say. I mean, it looked like it was just painted. It was just painted.
I have to say it one more time, and I don't want you to feel like we're just like coming down on you personally. It's just like it was mentioned earlier, the integrity of this home. We're trying to help with maintaining the integrity of the home to keep the rhythm of the historic district. We have an amazing, rich, vibrant, renowned historic district in Wilmington and around Wilmington, and I think there's such a can of worms being opened by removing 100% of the siding on this house and replacing it with wood. The rot isn't that bad. I know for a fact
You could see right there on the left-hand side where my bushes are, like that, I could literally pull that whole board right off, as an example.
I'm sorry, what part of the
Left bottom.
the picture on the left or
The
right?
picture. The picture on the right, the left-hand bottom. I could pull that board right off.
Those boards always rot if you don't take care of them. There are 100 houses in this area that will come right off.
Just as a reminder, this house was just done.
And
So maybe the wood that was underneath the siding wasn't in as good shape.
so I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my mind wrapped around when you say what was just done. What was just done to the house aside from replacing the windows?
The house was
Fully resided?
fully,
Recently?
the people who bought the home in 2022 had taken off the vinyl siding,
Yep.
As
And
she
behind
just
the
mentioned,
vinyl siding was
original wood.
this.
But perhaps that original wood, as we're seeing, was not in the shape that maybe it was just rotten wood that was painted.
Yeah. The problem with vinyl siding is it's only as good as the installer when you cover something like this. So there are a lot of bad ways to do vinyl siding, but that doesn't mean that this entire house the exterior needs to be fully, completely ripped apart to repair a few pieces of rotted wood. The windows, you put these new windows on and properly install the windows, encase the windows, and replace a handful of boards and fully paint the house. It's done. I just don't.
I need the house sealed. I can't just have wood and then whatever, the insulation, and then my drywall.
And there are numerous houses. A lot of old houses don't have any sheathing behind them or anything like that.
Well, in my particular situation, with the water intrusion,
Have you had just one person provide advice? and
No.
Consultation on this?
no.
Many?
I haven't.
Many,
I've
and
had
they've all
several.
recommended you have to pull off all the siding and sheathe it and, right? Is that what
I've
you're?
had more than one.
Okay, so you're proposing now to maybe to change this whole thing, and what you want to do now, what you're offering is to remove everything and put it all back, put a bunch of wood siding back on there.
I'll do all wood if that, if I can't have the stuff that'll last 30 years and no maintenance, I'll do the short-acting wood all around. It's fine. But I need to reside it either way. This
If
is-
you replace the windows correctly and tried that as far as saving the house and a whole lot of money, would that perhaps work for you?
No. No. I need to get rid of and set myself up for success to get rid of the mold that's within my home right now. And again, that's not your problem, but
But you've not tried to just to replace the windows correctly to
Correct.
alleviate the mold?
correct.
Does staff know if there's any precedent to anything like this where someone's wanted to remove all the siding off of a home and just install new siding, wood siding?
Not
again?
like to the level, not like 100% like this, no.
So in thinking about the integrity of this design in this house and getting it back into contributing status at some point, it's going to belabor the meeting, but I'd love to reopen the public hearing and see if I'm just curious from that perspective if Travis might have anything to say about this option. I'm trying to get more information. I know there's not a precedent to do this that the commission perhaps has never seen, ever.
Or maybe we continue and get
Just more information,
more
like
information, more opinions.
detail from the contractor. That's a good
Detail
point.
from even more contractors, because this is a travesty to this already, mess of, with the windows.
From our perspective, it's going to change things on the house that are hard to foresee right now, and from your perspective, it
What-
just
what-
doesn't make any sense.
Can I ask what your concerns are or what I'm not understanding is going to change? Because, the intent is to make this house beautiful.
Well, it's the
and not
original
look
siding.
awkward.
It's the original siding, and the new siding you put on there, the new wood siding you put on there, that wood is nowhere near the quality of the wood that's on the house right now. You can't find,
But
except
any-
in small
any-
bundles here and there, you're not going to find,
Anything that can be salvaged, obviously for cost purposes as well, will be salvaged and reused if at all possible.
percent of it. Which will be 90+% of it.
Well,
If I may, I think we may be at an impasse here. I think, Ms. Schultz, you're running into a commission that doesn't seem inclined to approve this item at this time. So it might be helpful for you to bring in your contractor at the next meeting so that they can answer any questions that, that is their expertise. And they would be able to answer the technical questions that our commission is asking to ensure that what's going to go back on this house would get it closer to being a contributing resource again in the district. Because if they deny your application, you're going to have difficulty bringing it back in a timely manner. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
I can't afford to get it denied and not be able to come back. I really didn't think that this was a huge issue because I was definitely willing to do wood either way. I just was wanting to get
It's
something
also,
more
yeah,
sturdy.
it's also in a very unusual precedent setting, because again, when you pull off all this wood, everything about this is going to change. Nothing is going to be original again. It'll be wood, but it's not going to be, it's going to be a horrible product, the wood that you install now, and it's in the entire rhythm, the detail, the dimensions, the scale of trim and how trim interacts, the corners interact with the side, everything is going to change.
But as
in
you
ways
mentioned,
you can't even really,
you said 90% of it,
maybe
based on
95%.
based on what you know, you said would be reusable. So with that knowledge that you have, maybe I'm just seeing the 5%, right? Because I know they replaced some, so that's new in between, probably not on the front. That would go back on the house. I'm not trying to throw things out.
And when it comes off, it's not going to go back on well. Like, you can't strip this whole house and hire someone to pull it all. It's all going to break when it comes off with the nails that are blind nailed behind the siding, and you've got nails that are face nailed that we can't really see in the images. It's not going to come apart well. And if you pull 100% of this wood off, maybe 30% of it's going to go on okay. There's so many things that are just going to go wrong with this that it's risky to pursue, for us to approve it and pursue it. It's riskier than I feel like. I feel like if the contractor were here, they could answer some questions, and maybe there's another way they could understand this or consider this. But I agree. I'd like to continue it till January if we can do that and just have a little bit more.
We're really struggling with
Yeah,
this.
willing to go with that.
Sounds like I have no choice.
Never seen a house stripped down,
I mean,
and especially hard pine
Didn't they
wood.
just strip the house on Walnut, the corner of 7th and Walnut? Didn't they just strip that whole house? They've been doing work there. They're basically rebuilding the whole home. It's a greenhouse. 7th and Walnut.
I'm not sure.
They actually took all of the siding off the home because I've been watching it being built.
It might be out of the district. I mean, it's possible.
7th and Walnut? 7th and North Walnut?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
Chestnut, I'm sorry, Chestnut. 7th and Chestnut. 7th and Chestnut. It's at the very corner there. It's a very, very large home.
I'm not going
I know this is frustrating, but we're really struggling with this.
Understood,
I think it
but
would be better to continue it until next month.
that's fine, but I'll try and find that where they requested it because they did take all of the siding off.
We'll go look at that and see.
Yes, they did.
The project she's referring to is on McCray Street, and they have a year to change the siding back to wood, and we have been in consistent contact with them about the purchase of the wood siding that they are going to replace what they put up hardy board because they came in for an after-the-fact approval. You guys denied the hardy board and requested that they put in wood, and so to help them continue their project, we got their purchase order and purchase of the wood, and they have a year to have it installed, and we are monitoring that home.
Oh, okay.
I have a
All right.
question, I have a question, Ms. Hoffman. Since this is already an ongoing hearing, if we look at the house or investigate further, is that ex parte, or is this already something we are aware of and we're dealing with?
You always have the option to look at other properties. Ex parte would be if you were speaking with someone about a particular house or property outside of the open hearing. But you can always go look at properties under consideration or that have been mentioned during the hearings.
Okay.
I have a couple questions for you. Has anyone investigated, I know this house was a flip. Are you sure there's actually insulation in all the walls?
I'd like to think so, sir.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to think so, sir. I know that there's insulation above the house. I know that there's insulation underneath the house.
Because I'm thinking I don't know if you know this or not, did they gut the inside of the house when they flipped it, removed whatever wall was there, lath or sheetrock, and replaced that?
I believe so.
replaced the plaster with vinyl, with regular sheetrock? Have you had an HVAC person come in and test the system and the compatibility with what you've got?
I have done a lot of things that are not relevant to this particular.
But this is relevant, an HVAC person to come in and test the system in, as far as mold, et cetera.
I have a lot to do, and I have a lot of research that has been done.
Okay.
This system could be oversized, for
Yeah,
sure.
it sounds like it could be.
You know, if you needed a 2.5 ton, maybe they installed a 3.5 ton for, you know, they're just, anyways, requires.
So I'm happy with tabling this until January, and if you can give me a clue as to what shakes in the meantime might be the appropriate ones, if the ones I selected or not, that would be helpful. You know, I can.
But what's wrong with these shakes?
Well, if I, again,
That's
when my
what we-
contractor comes, when we come back,
Right.
and everything needs to come off, I'm going to need to replace them.
That's what would be very helpful to know.
And an HVAC, you know, someone to look at the HVAC system and.
I already have, and I have a plan in place for all of those other items that are
Great.
related.
Okay. When that comes back to us, we'll take a
Yeah,
look at it.
that's a lot of really helpful information. Okay, then we'll make a motion to table this until next month and actually I'd kind of like to look at it a little bit closer as well. We
Yeah.
just don't have enough information.
Understood, and remember, the primary reason is to do the wrapping the house. There just also happens to be a lot of wood that's in disrepair on the house. Okay, thank you.
Okay, could I have a motion to continue?
I move to continue the exterior alterations, including a change in cladding material. Details as shown on the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statement contained in the application and
Ashley, you don't have to read all that if you're just
supplemental
continuing.
materials and statements made at this meeting. Huh?
You don't have to read all that if you're just going to
Okay.
continue.
All right.
Oh,
Got a second?
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, then we will move to the last item on the agenda, 208 Market. Oh, the after-the-fact waiver for a stay of demolition.
Yeah, ending the night with a bang. Okay. The subject property is located on the south side of Market Street between South Second and South Third Streets. It is a non-contributing resource to the Central Business District Historic Overlay. 208 Market Street is listed in the Wilmington National Register report as a circa 1955 structure that at its time was referred to as the Metropolitan Sky Bar. The flat roof commercial building is a non-contributing resource in the Commercial District Overlay and features a brick and glass facade and at one time had a projecting canopy sign. On November 6, 2023, staff confirmed that the roof was removed without prior approval and a stop work order was issued by the City of Wilmington Code Enforcement. City staff and New Hanover County had approved an interior demolition permit prior to the discovery of the roof being removed. Following several site visits from both staff of New Hanover County and the City of Wilmington, on November 16th, the structure was condemned by New Hanover County and an emergency demolition permit was pursued due to the public safety concerns. The subject property, along with the neighboring properties, creates continuity along Market Street. The gap or void created by the removal of historic structure will negatively impact the 200 block of Market Street and the Central Business District Overlay as a whole, because it will interrupt the developmental pattern and rhythm of the streetscape. Prior to this meeting, the eastern wall had to be removed due to public safety concerns. Staff notes that HPC cannot deny an application for a certificate of appropriateness for demolition except for those properties that the North Carolina State Historic Preservation Officer has determined as having statewide historic significance. 208 Market Street does not have statewide significance. Staff is working with the applicant to see the project through for new construction and has requested that the project be approved in the technical review committee prior process before continuing through HPC for a new design. Staff also notes that they've been working with the staff at New Hanover County to ensure that permits that are approved within any local district or overlay are properly reviewed and flagged before approval, as well as inspected consistently and periodically to assure that work is not impacting the exterior of the building or adjacent properties. Staff would like to enter tonight's presentation and report in its entirety to the record.
Any questions for staff?
I guess, so what exactly, were we taking the stay away for what's still standing, or?
You're just we have to follow procedure, and so procedure is that we have to issue a COA for after the fact waive of the stay of demolition.
So we're sort of ordering lifeboats for the Titanic after the ship sank?
I don't know.
Something along those. Okay, got it.
Right, right.
And
So,
Mr. Sulky, they also had originally planned on bringing their new construction plans to this meeting as well, but when staff looked at those plans, they did not have the detail that we needed, so that's going to be coming in January or February, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
okay,
Makes sense. Okay.
all right, thank you.
Yep.
We will, is the applicant here? Would they like to, okay, if you'd like to come forward and provide additional information or answer questions, just give us your name and address so we can get it into the minutes.
How y'all doing this evening? My name is William Hartnett, and the address is 8200 Lantana Lane, where I preside. So I wanted to speak to the commission just because when we started this process in July, the building had already been condemned for 6 years. I was brought in to bring a building, or to do a building condition report for any code violations that were in there and the condition of the building. I then provided a 100-page building condition report of all the code violations that were in there and provided it to a public hearing in the new building department building where we had it for a condemnation. And at that point in time, I presented the report, which had all the code violations in there. A lot of them were structural. And then I also gave a remedy for all of that to be done. When I turned my demolition, when the owner hired me to do it and I turned my demolition permit in, and again, I was working closely with code compliance, with everybody down at the building department, because it was a very public hearing and very public situation, being that building was condemned. When I turned my building demo permit in, I also turned in my estimate, which included all the demo from interior to exterior, as well as my contract. So everybody in plan review knew of every intent to do to what we were doing with this building. Unfortunately,
At New Hanover County, everyone knew.
yes. And unfortunately, Jessica did not know about any of this, and I wasn't aware. We were aware going forward when we did a new building that we would have to be involved in this situation or this process, but we didn't know for the demolition. Matter of fact, the county told me that it was waived, because the building was condemned and the shape it was in, that a COA was waived for this process. So I was ignorant to anything that needed to be talked about with Ms. Jessica or anybody else. During the demolition process, we took this kind of like peeling the layers of the onion back. And in order to do this safely, we had to, like, take the sheetrock off, then take the studs off, and everything how this building was built was not built to code. The roof itself had over 50 to 60% burn on it from previous fires that most likely happened when the old knob and tube was in the building. And so lots of times in older buildings, they'll catch fire and then smolder themselves out. So we had over 60% of the roof deck that was burned, plus all the framing members that were burned. So as we began kind of peeling the layer of the onion back and exposed the roof structure and saw how bad it was, and also the 2x6s that were spanned 24 feet had a 6 to 10 inch deflection in them because all the weight over the years and how much it was done. So it was in the original plan to take the roof off. The ballast stones that were on there, the roof deck was coming off, And then we had a budget in there to replace any structural members to try to save the framing. When we exposed it all, we had an engineer come down, and he said that basically the framing was oversized, over-deflected, and of course it was over 60% burned, so the roof framing had to come off. At that time, I didn't know to contact Ms. Jessica about the exterior roof, so we took the roof off, and we took it off in the very beginning on lifelines, so we didn't fall through, but it was so dangerous taking it off. Each time you took a little bit of layer off, the structural integrity of the roof was so dangerous that it had to come down. Second thing with the storefront, to address all concerns of the exterior, the original the parapet cap that was on there was rotten and sitting on top of the storefront frame. So the parapet cap was not stable, so that had to be removed, and the old storefront glass, none of the glass was tempered on the front. So if anything, if I were up there and hit a piece of glass and it fall on a pedestrian, it's going to kill somebody. So the glass had to come out, and those frames from the 80s or 90s were so old, I had 3 different companies come down and give us estimates. They wouldn't be able to reuse the existing storefront frame, which wasn't to the original period of it. So that explains the roof, the storefront parapet, and the storefront. Now, as we were peeling all this back, the slab, that was old movie theater, so the slab went down and did a whole bunch of different stuff. When we took the slab out, we had a detail for saving all those walls. It was never our intent for these walls to come down in any way, shape, or form. So the last thing I want to do is take those walls down, because I held liability of the safety that goes with it. But once we took that slab out, within 2 days, we had a rain, and then I found, if you're familiar with downtown Wilmington, you know that we used to have tributaries, creeks that ran down to the river. And as we build on top of these things, the creeks go down farther, but they're still there. Yeah. So we finished everything on the interior slab, taking it out, and then that was on a Friday and Saturday. Sunday we had a rain, and I found out I've got a river that runs underneath my building, which, beknownst to me, I didn't know, nor did I enjoy it. So we immediately that morning, we found out Monday morning we came in, I had, I think, 24 tons of stone brought in. We dug a pit, put a trash can in it with a pump in it to start collecting that water and pumping it out so we get it out. Unfortunately, what happened is this 100-year-old walls have no footings underneath of them. They're built right on the sand. So the walls were already leaning 6 inches from 100 years of just kind of sitting there. And what happened is we had that rain, we had catastrophic cracks that now happen in the left-hand wall, and there was no footing at all underneath the rear wall. And we had some greenery on the other side, and we have dirt on the other side from the other owner and or tenant, which I think, unbeknownst to them, over years contributing to the decay of the mortar joints throughout that backside. So we all met down there, and the engineer came down there, and at this point, we find no way to save those walls. And then we immediately spent the next 2.5 weeks shoring the left-hand wall and the backhand wall, shoring everything up till it was stabilized. We went through great lengths, financially and physically, to shore these walls up to keep the safety. And our building to the left of us, we only have 4 feet between the 2 buildings. The building owner to the left of us has been very gracious and allowed us to do all this shoring against his building. And in conjunction with him, we are working with the building owner behind us to provide additional shoring for that, and then working on arrangements to take that wall down so that we can do new construction. Again, the plan we had to save those walls was to do footings on the inside, put forms up, concrete reinforced walls 10 feet tall that would help kind of secure us, and then we were going to do gusset plates on the top, on the outside, to bring them all into the steel to keep all those outside walls and deal with the problems that we had of the walls leaning out because there's no footings. And that would have been an incredible expense to do that. And that's kind of where we're at. It's unfortunate we have a river under our building. Our goal now is we're shoring up the steel, because if you saw, there's structural steel in that building that doesn't have vertical steel structural supports. It's sitting on the brick itself. So we're supporting the steel the next 3 days, and then our engineer and Chris Holmes will make a site visit Monday. We have it scheduled for 10 o'clock for him to approve our shoring, so we can begin to not literally, but pretty much almost brick by brick, have to take those walls down safely. And it's going to take about the next 3 weeks to get those down. At that point, we'll have a clear site, clean site. We do have a proposal for a new building to go back there, which we hope you guys will work with us so we can get some value back to that property. If you have any questions for me, I'm open.
No, go ahead.
I just think it's incredible that, I've been in the steel business for years and years, that these beams were allowed to sit on the brick
Pilasters.
foundations without any
I know.
columns or
could
some.
make this stuff
I mean,
up.
be careful. I mean, that is scary. That is really scary.
We joke lots of times that what holds some of these older buildings up, and I mean, I've worked on Thalian Hall when the contractor, I was a subcontractor doing all the framing in here. I've worked on many projects downtown. Carolina Place, I've done about 30 house room renovations in there. The Murchison Building, done tons of work in there. I love preserving historic buildings. Lots of times we joke that what holds these things together is caulk and the mold in them. And this one was, as we peel these layers back, a lot of that was holding it together was the paint.
So until fairly recently, this is an occupied building. I mean, people were using this for clubs or something. So it could have potentially been a catastrophic failure.
To my knowledge, the building has been condemned for 6 years. There was a potential leasee going in there the past year, and that's when some of these things were discovered, and that was stopped.
Well,
Wow. That's a lot of drama for downtown.
Yeah.
It's a lot of weight on my shoulders to make sure everything comes down safely, which we still have to do that.
Yeah.
And the cooperation from the builder and the owner next door have been fantastic. Of course, we have to block the street off as well. So city engineers have been gracious with my, my right-of-way permit, my sidewalk permit. We've got it, every day we get there, we can pretty much shut Market off in between 2nd and 3rd so nobody gets hurt. Although that's another problem is pedestrians love to come and look, and people still try to pull their cars through. So again, public safety is of my biggest concern to make sure nobody gets hurt, because as we're pulling all this demolition material out, that's where we have an opportunity for somebody to walk through our zones that we have caution taped off, safety cones off, signs off. We've gone through all those precautions, so my big thing is public safety, make sure nobody gets hurt with it. And again, we've been very vigilant about trying to, again, peel these layers of onion back to take this building down, or not take the building down, but as we were demoing it, to take it down safely. And the only other thing I wanted to add, again, sometimes the county doesn't communicate with historic preservation. I think Ms. Jessica has made great attempts to try to get that rectified with the county so that there's more clarity of communication. I have approached Ms. Jessica and asked if, whatever I can do to make sure this process goes through smoother so I don't miss a step in it, because I don't want to be on the bad side of it. And then the only last thing I was going to add is when we fill out our permit applications, which I've got here, I've got 2 lines to fill everything out. And in those 2 lines, I can't get everything in there. So I always start off with interior demo, removing sheetrock, removing rails, and then that's why I attach my estimate with the whole details of what we were doing in it.
So that was attached as in Coast, as a part of the submittal, was kind of an amendment, an addendum, if you will,
Yeah,
to what was in the actual commercial interior demo permit application. You had uploaded something else that was more, showing more extensive.
Yeah, I've got the email where I also sent to Hans. He had my estimate and contract, and I've been very, in the very beginning of the process, we were talking every day about what was going on. So there was nobody left in the dark except, unfortunately, Ms. Jessica about what we were doing, how we were doing it, and why we were doing it. And everybody at that meeting, I don't have the minutes from that public meeting, but everybody in that meeting knew exactly why we were doing what we had to do and had the pictures and the 100-page report, which I've got here if you guys want it. I've got the estimate, the contract, the email to Hans where he had that, and the 100-page report.
And since it's here, Billy, as a part of this record here, this attachment 5, the letter from Chris Holmes dated November 14th is, some allegations levied, if you will. Do you have anything to say about some of these points here in defense of how they were proposing it gets demolished versus how it did get demolished?
I do, because I'll stand here and take full responsibility for anything I do. I won't try to write a letter to cover my backside. I'll take full responsibility for anything I have to do. I'm not going to try to escape out on that. With the engineer that we have in question, he was making site visits, and each time he made a site visit, he might make a suggestion. We finished the demolition of the concrete slab on a Friday, and he came down to look at the major wall we were concerned about was the front wall, because there are so many points of cracking in there and so many lintels that we were worried about the front wall coming down. And so we talked about shoring of that. We never talked about shoring on the left-hand wall because it all looked great. There was no cracks in it, nothing to it. And on the back wall, when he came that Monday, he said we need to get that shored up. So by the time he mentioned shoring of walls, it was within a day or two of us taking that concrete out. It wasn't weeks before, it wasn't months before, it was pretty much within that action. And I think you may be aware, it took 3 weeks just to shore up one wall. So from his recommendation of doing it, within 3 days we were doing that. Also, when he made site visits and looked at the structural integrity of the roof, we did a walkthrough with him and one of his associates, and we had talked about everything of why this roof had to come down, but at that time he also didn't write a letter about that. It was the conversations of when we do the new build back, we're going to go back with 2x12s, and this is how we're going to attach it, which we have in our new architectural and PM&E and structural drawings. So some of that language in there is a CYA, which also, after the fact, on my demolition permit, after it was re-condemned, I know it was Burt Billings that went back in and specified permit was for interior, not exterior. So even the county went back and did a CYA on that one, but everybody in the county knew from day one what we were doing and how we were doing it. So I'm just here to be honest about it.
By means of that addendum, of some other documents that you uploaded to Coast along with the commercial interior demo permit?
Yeah, and the email that I sent to Hans. Yeah, I'm not here to cover my butt in any way. I'm here to give you the honest truth of it all. And I'm the one responsible for having to take these walls down. Now, the also conversation with Chris is, had we not had any of those, had the river not risen in the middle of my building, and we not had those cracks in there, when we were going to do the new process of what we're going to do, and Chris was going to require a 3-foot by 3-foot footing underneath the existing walls. So how do I get a 3-foot by 3-foot footing underneath the existing walls without them coming down? So in the end, would something like this have had to happen as we're trying to dig underneath there to undermine the existing walls that had no footing underneath of it? I don't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting technique. I mean, at 10 South Front Street, not too long ago, there was a building that was in worse shape than this, between Finkelstein's and Nicky's, at the back of that parking lot across from the old Platypus and Gnome, that was worse condition than this, and we installed 33 helical piers to about 20 to 30 feet depth, poured foundation all the way around it. We never excavated next to or underneath or anything like that, but there was so we built the steel superstructure, bolted all the walls to the steel superstructure, didn't try to cinch the brick back in, but the technique for rescuing those walls was, is put in the, and I guess in this design for this 3-foot by 3-foot footing is, I guess, one way to go about it, but there's so many ways to go about this. Jessica, is there, when commercial interior demo permits come to the county, does that review not go to the city at all? Like most building permits, if you have a building permit and you're in the city of Wilmington, you submit a permit application to the county, but the city signs off.
Yep.
Interior demo permits don't come in front of?
We signed off with a note that said if anything touches the exterior, that it requires a COA. And then they sent an addendum, and that permit was pending when we got out there on the day that there was no roof, with a note that also said COA required if touching the exterior. So
That would have been a,
It kind of happened a little fast. I think that's where that came in to play.
and I actually had 2 permits in play. I had a demolition permit, which was filed for, after that hearing that we had for the the condemnation and the violation of everything, the code violations, so at that public hearing, from that minute forward, my clock was ticking. I had 60 days to get plans in and get them approved, or consequences thereof. So I turned a demo permit in so we get started, and then turned a building permit in, which was pending based on architectural drawings, which have been ongoing since day one. Originally, it was just going to be turned back into a vanilla shell, code compliant, so it could be leased out to whatever it was going to be. And then through discussion with the architect and other officials, it was determined what the owner wanted to use that space for versus another venue. Because I think, I quit drinking 20 years ago, but I think it's been a bar for the last 20 years, and maybe the public is not, maybe that's not the best use for that space of a continual bar and that type of element. So the owner's not putting that there, so it went from a vanilla shell into what we're actually gonna be putting there. So I did have a demo permit and a building permit. I think what Ms. Jessica, her notes were attached to my not yet approved building permit, but my demo permit didn't have anything, any notes on it. And when I printed it out, I've got a copy of it here, it doesn't have anything on it about what she was talking about, because I think that's for the other permit, if that helps clarify that.
Any other questions for applicant? Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll open the evidentiary portion to members of the public. And we will close the evidentiary portion and go to commissioner deliberation.
No-brainer.
Oh, yeah. So somebody could just read the motion. So
I
we-
move to approve the after-effect waive of state of demolition. Details are shown on the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, narrative statement contained in the application, and supplemental materials and statements made at this meeting are part of this request unless otherwise noted. The following conditions shall be applied to ensure compliance with design standards, those set forth in the staff report 1 through 4. Applicable design standards, 1.6, Secretary of the Interior Standards, 6.2, demolition.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Be careful. That's scary.
Scary.
Okay.
We will now move to whether there are any issues from staff that they would like to
Yes,
bring.
you guys need to approve the meeting dates that are set in your packet. There's a,
Oh, right, okay,
we just need to get those approved.
okay.
They're the second Thursday of every month.
So you need a motion from us to approve these?
I believe that's what Amy would like, yes.
Okay, all right, then, could somebody?
I motion to approve the meeting schedule for 2024.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Cool, thanks. And then just a quick design standard update. We had talked about it being this month, but we have been working with the consultants to make sure that everything's very thoroughly checked, and so it's just taking us a little longer, so we should be, my plan is to review that next month and then take it to council by February. So just wanted to kind of head y'all up on what was going on there.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any commissioners? Okay, then I will make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.